back. It is Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and take a look at some custom work that I have done. Now, I've been working on this for a couple of months now, so it has taken me a while to get this one out of the way. Constant tweaking and modifying till I finally got the figure looking the way I wanted it to look. Also, as you know, articulation and accessories plays a big part in when I work on my customs. Now, I kind of did all work out together because a couple of my boys, you have Collect to Disconnect, he did a custom Wolverine. New York Legend did a custom Deadpool. And my friend Steven from Human Customs did a Punisher as well. So all of that kind of helped me push this one along and finally complete it. But this is the first time that I have done a Marvel character by pretty much using all McFarlane DC Multiverse parts to do it. Reason being, I wanted him to scale with my DC Multiverse collection, as well as that I am a big Frank Castle, the Punisher fan. One of the first heroes that I attached myself to when I was younger. I've been a huge Punisher fan for a long time, but I go back more to, I think my first images were like Joe Jusko from the Punisher magazine. This story returned to Big Nothing with the beautiful art by Mike Zeck. And that's the Punisher, the Frank Castle that I more align myself with. Of course, characters are going to evolve over time, but you just need to keep it simple and keep characters to their traditions because that is what made them enduring to comic book fans. Now that I've gotten through all of that, let's concentrate on the figure. I did go ahead and use Commander Steel as a base body. I'll talk about that a little bit. I will break it down as we look at the figure, but enough talk. Let's go ahead and look at this guy. Awesome. Now, since I really enjoy that classic look of Punisher, I really wanted to do something reminiscent of the artwork that I originally saw when I was growing up. Of course, the Punisher skull is another thing that people have tried to, take out of context and make a big deal about. But I do have an extensive Punisher t-shirt collection. That is one shirt that I never shy away from, is a nice Punisher skull. You know me, I like skulls, so that's just going to be something that I'm going to be drawn to. But that is the reason why I went for this more classic look, because originally Punisher is more in a superhero costume, although be it a little bit dark and demented, it is your classic superhero design with a solid color and then the boots and gloves for accent, as well as the symbol directly on the chest. Just a classic superhero look. Now, in modern times, they have changed them to be more grounded in reality, using a trench coat or more militaristic weapons and gear for when he goes into battle. But I just really enjoy that classic Punisher look. So that is the reason I went with this whole design and scheme. The white contrasting very nicely with the solid black costume. Now let's get it out of the way. You do have texture on the arms and down the legs, but I kind of added it to give that little bit of reality, kind of the way McFarlane makes his figures. He makes them in a comic book style, but you will have a little slight edge of reality, like texture or just detail that you wouldn't usually put in a comic book design. So that's why at first I wasn't sure, but the more I've had him in hand, it just works really well with this look for the Punisher. So I do not mind the added sculpt that he has, the texture on his arms and legs. But you do have a classic Punisher skull on the chest. Now, all of this I did do by hand. I did do the eyes to start off with. I mean, I didn't get a lot of pictures because, as you know, I detest doing follow along videos. I just, when I do customs, it's kind of a little bit therapeutic for me. So I don't want to be filming or turning on, the camera. I just get into it and start doing it. So sorry about that, but this is the final product. So when I did the skull, I did use some tape to give me a little base for the eyes and the nostrils of the skull. So that is how I got that cool skull design. Of course, I painted the whole body black with some matte Tamiya spray, which is really good because it grabs on to the plastic from McFarlane very well. Of course, taking it all apart, spraying it, and then reassembling it, all to get this cool classic look. Now let's talk about the head real quick just to get it out of the way. This is a Mezco head that I ordered online. Now there is an alternate head where he's just, standard with no emotion. So I will be looking to getting that one as well so I can have an alternate look. But I think this screaming, yelling head really does well with Frank Castle. Now, originally, as I saw on Stephen Human's Customs, he showed that he did a custom Punisher and he used a Superman future state head. And I really like this head. It does look very reminiscent of Frank Castle. But once I got it all together and I was checking out how all the parts looked together, the head was just too small. It just wasn't going to work. So I had to go ahead and go with the Mezco head. Now, the Mezco head took a lot of drilling and and scraping out plastic to get it to fit the way I wanted. There is a neck plug in there that I had to modify to make it very short so that the head would sit low on the shoulders. But in the end, it looks really good. Now, as I said, I will be looking into getting the neutral head. That way I don't have to have them screaming all the time. But these Mezco heads are really nice. And due to their size and the bulkiness of the Mezco bodies, they fit very well in the 1/10th scale. Now, these heads do have a lot of detail, have a lot of bruising, like he's been through some war. So I do enjoy the way the head looks on the body. You do have articulation. He looks down, he looks up really high, great range. You got right to left. And of course, you could tilt the head for some attitude. So that was great. The head came out pretty nice. I did have to paint the skin tone around the neck because, of course, I had painted everything black when I started off. But all in all, worked out really well and looks really nice. Now, of course, articulation is another problem. You do retain articulation. We got the shoulder socket and bushing joint, which gives you a lot of range. You can move it front and back and up and down. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbows look really clean. Going down into the hands. Now, I did take this hand, open gesturing hand, from that terrible Angel Marvel Legends. I just had to modify it to fit on a McFarlane wrist peg. Now, I do have an alternate fist that I could swap out pretty easily. So if I ever want to have them, with a fist, I do have that option. And on the other hand, you do have the gripping hand, which of course is to hold his gun. That I am going to do a photo shoot with this guy in a couple of days and do a lot of DC versus Marvel and put him in a team that I really like and just, armor him up with all the guns I could find to get some cool shots of my custom. So you retain articulation. Now, the waist is another thing I had to figure out because there's different ways to do it. Now, I did get the belt and the trunks from one of my many customs that I have done with the Hush Batman. So since I had an extra one laying around, I did this. It did fit the best. These are not the trunks from Commander Steel. And all I did was repaint the white part of the pouches. Now, the other thing was the teeth that, the Punisher usually has on his belt. Originally, later on, they kind of changed it to where he didn't have that, or they would be pouches, or the teeth were just painted on the skull. So there's so many ways you could do it. This is just the way I decided to go. The reason being that when I would see a lot of artwork and he had these, tubular pouches on here, they hardly ever had the lines for the teeth painted on the skull. They were always just the skull was bare, and the pouches were supposed to represent the teeth. So that's why I went with that. You do have side to side at the waist. You got the full tilt-a-whirl, lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel, twist them, get them in some nice poses. I mean, the range is fantastic. I did do all of the mods that you could go and check out on my best Superman mods video. That's what gives this guy all of that extra range. He can lean back, and one thing I did want to do that I did was give him a great forward crunch. And you could see how the teeth for the belt worked out to where they flex a little bit, but it pretty much touches right where those teeth begin. So really awesome that everything worked out well and came out great, especially staying functional, and of course having minimal paint rub. So painted everything white that I needed to, and then I had to figure out the holster. Now, originally I was just gonna not do a holster and have him holding a bunch of rifles, but I really felt like he needed it. It's just something to give a little bit of accent to the whole design. So I went ahead, I think I bought in about 10 Thomas Wayne Batmans from the from the first release. I have bought in a bunch of those to get the guns, to get the pouches. They always come in useful, especially since that figure is not very expensive. Once again, utilize that Thomas Wayne pouch with the gun. Now, originally, I was going to make the straps go around the leg, and I could have done that very easily. I've done that with my Simon Baz Green Lantern. That's how I did that one. But for some reason, I just felt like it looks better and it functions better to have a floating holster. So that's the way I decided to go with this one. That way you could still articulate and move the legs, and the holster just floats up and down. Now it is working. You can remove the gun and put it back. And I have to say that even the design of the holster works well with the belt and the teeth. And I'm just glad everything worked out the way it did. Now you do have some thigh swivel there, retain articulation in the knees, and now we get down to one of my favorite parts of this whole custom, which was the boots, because it'd be hard for you to figure out which boots these are, because I completely repainted them and redesigned them. Now these are the Hawkman boots from the collector's edition Hawkman Platinum. Now, the reason I have these boots is, of course, I did my own classic Hawkman, and I changed out the boots to give them a more comic book accurate design. So these boots I've had left over for a long time in my fodder. And when I looked at them, they just had that old school classic thick boot, design. Reminded me a lot of one of the only Punisher figures that I had that I got rid of a long time ago, and that was the old Toy Biz Marvel Legends Punisher. It really reminded me a lot of those boots, and I think they fit very well. Now you still retain articulation. You can move the ankles up and down. You still have rocker, and of course you still have toe articulation. Looking at them from the bottom, which I did paint, of course. Looks good. Move up the back. Everything worked out well. The black and the white looking very prime. And you get into the back, which I do love, a wide back. And this figure that I used, the Commander Steel, ended up being perfect for the build of Frank Castle's Punisher. So pretty much that is it, guys. Great addition to my collection. Now you can do some DC versus Marvel. Like I said, I want to make them a little team of gun-toting patriots to go with him. I just something I've been wanting to do. And of course, as always, Custom work takes up a lot of my time. So if you guys don't hear from me for a while, or it takes a couple of days, to upload something, it's usually because I'm doing some custom work. I'll try and keep putting out the content. You guys let me know any of your thoughts or questions down below. But as always, keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.